Chapter 420 Josha Cave Mansion. Chapter 420 Josha Cave Mansion. Don't worry. They wouldn't have assigned an impossible task. The power of the formation is extraordinary, but I have my methods to break it, Bone King laughed. Oh, the experts were surprised. The most indestructible part of the cave mansion is the formation. If it can be broken, those guards aren't a great threat, thought Jian Wushuang. Everyone, don't worry about the formation. I guess you'll have no problems dealing with the cave mansion guards. The most difficult part of this task is to guard it after we occupy it. Bone King said seriously and then clapped his hands. A woman in a purple robe walked in immediately. Nice to meet you, I'm Lady Red. As an ordinary expert at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, the lady was humble and respectful to Jian Wushuang and the other experts. Lady Red was sent by high officials and has great attainment in formation. After we occupy the cave mansion, she'll set the formation. That will definitely take some time. While that's in progress, we can expect Pale Moon Marquis to send experts to attack us. We have to fight the experts of Pale Moon Marquis camp to buy time for her. Don't let anyone interfere with her. Once the formation is finished, the cave mansion will be controlled by Drifting Blood Marquis camp. We will then be able to use the formation to stop those experts, Bone King explained as he looked around. The experts understood what Bone King said. The cave mansions were the most coveted objects on the flaming battlefield. All cave mansions were valuable to the two camps. Pale Moon Marquis camp would dispatch experts immediately if they lost a mansion. What they had to do was to hold off the experts until Lady Red finished setting the formation. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to stop those experts of Pale Moon Marquis, Beast said in a low voice. Indeed. That's why the reward is huge. The cave mansion is also an opportunity. It's up to you to seize it. I've specially invited Swordsman for this task. His realm will be of great help to us, Bone King laughed. Swordsman. Beast glanced at Jian Wushuang. His eyes carried a trace of disdain and a hint of violence. All the experts present were at the top of Stage 3, and were famous in the inner area. Jian Wushuang was merely a newcomer with ordinary battle strength, at about the high level of Stage 3. That was why Beast had not paid him any attention. He was not aware that the Jian Wushuang had condensed the origin mark. Jian Wushuang's battle strength had increased by several times, and he had reached the peak of Stage 3. With the assistance of his realm, Jian Wushuang was confident that if he had to fight Beast, it would end in a draw. Beast, don't underestimate Swordsman's realm. Shuiyang and I witnessed it just now. Even I was greatly oppressed by his realm and my strength dropped sharply. His realm will be of immense help for this task, Bone King said. I hope so, Beast curled his lips. Bone King, Jian Wushuang suddenly said, our task is to occupy a cave mansion, but which one? The other experts turned to look at Bone King. Pale Moon Marquis controlled numerous cave mansions, including extremely valuable ones and ordinary ones which were nearly empty. They would naturally pay more attention to the valuable ones. Our target is Josha Cave Mansion, said Bone King. Josha? Jian Wushuang and the other experts were surprised. Pale Moon Marquis camp controlled many cave mansions, including 3 Marquis cave mansions. The 3 Marquis cave mansions were the most valuable and their defenses were unassailable. Occupying those mansions would only be possible for experts of Lord level, rather than Stage 3 experts of the Saint Realm like them. Josha Cave Mansion was not a Marquis cave mansion. However, it was very precious and just slightly less important than the 3 Marquis cave mansions. Josha Lord was a famous Cloud Realm expert who had died 1,000 years ago. In terms of strength, he was second only to a Marquis. The cave mansion he had left behind was extremely valuable. It had been discovered less than 10 years ago. That meant that it would still contain hidden treasures or opportunities, which would be of great help to any warrior. Its importance to Pale Moon Marquis was only second to the 3 Marquis cave mansions. Josha Cave Mansion, we're going to occupy the Josha Cave Mansion. The Pale Moon Marquis camp will be enraged if we occupy the Josha Cave Mansion. Josha Cave Mansion is not an ordinary Lord's cave mansion. The experts were excited and broke into a discussion among themselves. Jian Wushuang sat at the table, his eyes slightly closed. Josha Lord had been an expert of sword principle. Therefore, there must be several opportunities for warriors of sword principle in his cave mansion. Josha Cave Mansion was quite attractive to him. Everyone, Bone King spoke again in a loud voice. That's all I have to say about the task. It's very difficult and dangerous, however, it's also rewarding. You'll have to weigh its risks against its benefits. Take it or leave it, it's up to you. The experts quieted down and considered their options. The rewards were tempting, but the task was also extremely dangerous. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm in, Shuiyang said. Since Shuiyang is going, I must go too. Life in the inner area is boring now. I need to find some excitement, Beast grinned. The remaining two experts hesitated, but nodded their assent after a moment. If you don't mind, I'll go with you and help you as much as possible, Jian Wushuang said. Haha, Swordsman, your realm technique is a powerful weapon for us, Bone King laughed. When should we start? Jian Wushuang asked. Now. A glimmer of anticipation shone in Bone King's eyes. Chapter 421 Breaking Array. Chapter 421 Breaking Array. Within the flaming battlefield were 330 cave mansions, of which most were located in the outer area. This included the discovered cave mansions which belonged to the 6 marquises. And so to the Josha Cave Mansion. There was nothing special about a particular sallow and desolate mountain to the naked eye. However, beneath this mountain was the presence of a cave mansion, and near the mountain was a faint sign of an immaterial halo. The halo shrouded the entire mountain without leaving even an inch of gap. It was the formation outside the Josha Cave Mansion. It was precisely because of this formation that even though many of the experts from Drifting Blood Marquis Camp knew that beneath the mountain was a cave mansion which promised many opportunities, they could only admire it from afar. Right at this moment, there was a party of 7 people, including Lady Red, standing abreast in a void not far from the mountain. Bone King, how are you going to break this formation if even Lord-level experts can't do anything about it? Beast grunted. Don't fret, just wait and see. Bone King laughed mysteriously. Jian Wushuang took a glance at Bone King and said, that formation is extremely powerful. It's absolutely impossible for us to break it by force on our own. The only way is to get someone from inside to collaborate with us and destroy the foundation of the formation. In Jian Wushuang's view, this was the only possibility. He had employed such a method in Nanyang Continent before. At that time he was bringing people to Ice Nether Valley to kill and turn the place upside down. Right at the start, he got his men to break the array core of the valley's protective array so that the valley could not deploy it. Things were happening in the Josha Cave Mansion beneath the mountain as Jian Wushuang and company waited in secrecy. The cave mansion was incomparably huge, and it extended in all directions. Within it were numerous secret chambers. A bald elder was seated in one of the chambers, and in front of him was an extremely difficult chess composition which he had not found the solution to despite having pondered for many months. Suddenly, the door of the chamber opened, and in walked a black-haired youth. Brother He. The black-haired youth laughed, carrying a pot of wine in his hand. The bald elder raised his head. When he saw the pot of wine in the youth's hand, his eyes sparkled, and he immediately swept the chess composition to one side. Brother He, I came especially to drink with you. The youth sat down in front of the elder and poured some wine for him. Younger brother Yunchong, I don't understand you. With your strength, you're definitely capable of making your way in the inner area, where you'll have many opportunities to attain battle achievements. You don't have to stay here like me, the elder remarked. Experts are a dime a dozen in the inner area. Won't I be courting death by going there? The youth laughed. Not necessarily. Even though it's dangerous in the inner area, you are, for better or worse, a stage 3 expert, which means you should be more than capable of gaining a foothold there. The bald raised his cup and sniffed it after he finished speaking. His eyes began to scorch at once. Good wine indeed. How could I possibly dare to offer it to you if it wasn't good? The youth replied solicitously. Haha, the bald elder's smile widened. He began to drink without any more hesitation. However, the moment he raised his head once again, he saw that the facial expression of the youth had turned from a constant warm smile into a hideous look. A wicked killing intent burst forth violently from the latter's eyes. Die! An amazingly fast icy ray of light began to illuminate the secret chamber. At such a close distance, the elder was utterly unable to react. What? Shock and anger began to fill his eyes as his body was thrown backward forcefully. However, when he got on his feet, he immediately felt a sharp pain in his heart. He subconsciously lowered his head to check. What he saw frightened him out of his wits. A gaping hole had been punctured in his chest area. Huge amounts of flesh and blood were streaming out of it, while his heart had also ruptured. You, the elder looked in disbelief at the black-haired youth. The latter had, just a while ago, been that courteous and complacent, but quickly turned hostile. He finished off the elder with a single stroke. The elder could not even ask why, before his body began to collapse gradually on the floor. The youth stood in the secret chamber and, with a cold and pitiless look, observed the body of the collapsed elder. He subsequently took away the elder's interspatial ring, and after making it recognize him as its owner, he pulled a token out of it. Relying on the token, he found his way to another secret chamber in the cave mansion. It was the location of the array core of the formation near to the cave mansion, while the chamber also had its own formation. What he had just taken from the bald elder was the only token which granted entrance to this secret chamber. After entering this chamber, the youth immediately began to destroy the array core of the formation without any hesitation. In the void outside the cave mansion, Jian Wushuang, Bone King, and their companions waited quietly. All of a sudden, they saw that the immaterial halo which had for long been shrouding the mountain began to quiver frantically. It has begun. Bone King's eyes lit up. Shuiyang, Beast, and others revealed looks of pleasant surprise when they saw the violent movement of the formation. The immaterial halo quickly reached the verge of disintegration. Let's go. It's time for us to get to work. We shall break the formation completely, Bone King said. With the exception of Lady Red, the other 6 experts moved forward at once and projected waves of attacks of every kind toward the formation. The formation, which was already on the brink of disintegration, was sundered by the attacks of the 6 people. Once the formation was broken, Josha Cave Mansion became rather like a naked young woman standing daintily in front of them. Right at this moment, a figure dashed out of the cave mansion and appeared in front of them. This person was none other than the black-haired youth, who had just murdered the bald elder, and completely destroyed the array core of the formation. Aren't you He Yun-chong? Shuiyang instantly recognized who he was. Bone King, Shuiyang, Beast. The youth greeted them one by one. Haha. When I accepted this mission, I already knew that an insider would collaborate with us to break the formation. However, I didn't know who it would be and certainly didn't think it would be you. Bone King laughed in delight. I was originally from Drifting Blood Marquis Camp, and was sent as a mole to Pale Moon Marquis very early on. I only exposed myself today for the sake of capturing Josha Cave Mansion. He Yun-chong laughed as well. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang and the others finally understood it all. Okay, let's not waste any more time. Since the formation has been broken, we should get started. A gush of killing intent surged from Bone King's body. Chapter 422 2 Days. Chapter 422 2 Days. As one of the most highly valued cave mansions in Pale Moon Marquis Camp, the place was not only protected by a powerful formation externally, but also by several experts internally at all times. However, these experts were mostly mediocre, and only 2 of them were any outstanding. One of them was He Yun-chong, while the other was the bald elder He. They were both stage 3 experts. He Yun-chong, of course, turned out to be a mole deployed by Drifting Blood Marquis, while Elder He had just been murdered by the former. Consequently, there remained only a bunch of stage 2 experts. They, too, had detected the changes which had taken place to the formation. What's going on? The formation is actually breaking. It's He Yun-chong. He killed Elder He and has now destroyed the array core of the formation. Damn it. I can't believe He Yun-chong is a spy. Quick, send word to the campsite. A commotion kicked off throughout Josha Cave Mansion. These stage 2 experts who served under Pale Moon Marquis would turn pale in shock when the formation was completely broken and Jian Wushuang and company appeared in front of them. I've killed the only stage 3 expert in here. The rest are just stage 2s. They carry no threat to us, He Yunchong said. Move! Bone King issued a terse order before transforming himself into a beam of flowing light which shot forth with a terrifying vigor. Jian Wushuang and company followed up without hesitation. Block them. Pale Moon Marquee experts were able to put up a resistance at first. However, they lost their courage after Bone King charged at them and with a casual slap, turned several of them into smithereens. Run! Fast! Oh gosh! We can't fend them off at all without the formation. Pale Moon Marquee Stage 2 experts began to flee disorderly. Various figures were seen scampering in all directions. Kill! Bone King's killing intent was soaring. Haha! These all count as battle achievements. Beast laughed maniacally. Only Jian Wushuang and Shui Yang did not act. Shui Yang's temperament was laid back, and he had no interest in killing people who were merely stage 2 experts of the Saint Realm. As for Jian Wushuang, even though he was innately battle-hungry, he never enjoyed slaying the weak. The entire Josha cave mansion quietened down after only a short while. Save for a very small handful who fortunately escaped, most of Pale Moon Marquee experts, who had been guarding the cave mansion, were ruthlessly massacred. Under He Yunchong's lead, Jian Wushuang and company arrived in the secret chamber where the array core had been. Lady Red, how long will it take you to fix up a formation? Bone King inquired. Lady Red looked around the place with a heavy face before replying. The floor area of this cave mansion is extremely large. It'll be rather tedious for me to fix up a formation. It should take at least 2 days to complete. 2 days. Bone King frowned slightly. The news of us capturing Josha Cave Mansion will spread very quickly to Pale Moon Marquee Camp. That should take a day at most by their usual speed. A fresh group of experts will then come to kill us. Pale Moon Marquee Camp valued Josha Cave Mansion greatly. Many of the experts who were guarding it possessed a messaging slip, which could send word to the Marquee in a short time. In fact, the camp already received news when Jian Wushuang and company had just started to capture the cave mansion. And knowing Pale Moon Marquee speed, he was very well able to organize a group of experts to come killing within a day. But most of the experts of Pale Moon Marquee Camp are out and about in the flaming battlefield, and not many are left in the camp. Even if the camp can deploy experts within a day, there shouldn't be too many of them. At most it will be a small team that comes. We just have to think of a way to fend off such a small team, Bone King noted. Understood. Jian Wushuang and company nodded their heads, albeit their expressions remained somewhat solemn. They all understood that in this mission, capturing Josha Cave Mansion was not the hard part. The real difficulty was in fending off the counteroffensive from Pale Moon Marquee's camp. Only that was the most difficult and dangerous part. Lady Red, you shall go and fix up the formation first. As for the rest, go and have a look around the cave mansion while the Marquee experts are not yet here. Who knows what you might find? After all, people from the Marquee camp need to amass 8,000 battle achievements before they are granted a single trip here. Bone King spoke once more. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang laughed involuntarily. Every cave mansion in the flaming battlefield possessed its own unique opportunities. Furthermore, the cave mansions controlled by the 2 large camps required unique battle achievements as payment for a single visit. For instance, even the most average cave mansions under Drifting Blood Marquee required the expenditure of between 2,000 to 3,000 battle achievements for a single visit. And for a cave mansion on Josha's level under Pale Moon Marquee, 8,000 battle achievements were required for a single visit. This meant that the cave mansion was considered to be among the highest level, and was only secondary to the Marquee personal cave mansions. Besides, the owner of Josha Cave Mansion, known as Josha Lord, was a sword principle expert. Jian Wushuang was desirous of some of the opportunities which the former had left behind on several sword principles in the cave mansion. Jian Wushuang, Shuiyang Beast, He Yunchong and company began to look around the cave mansion without hesitation. He Yunchong, you have been guarding Josha Cave Mansion for a long time. Haven't you looked around the place before? Beast questioned. Although I was guarding the place, I stayed only in the outer layer. The inner layer where the opportunities are was off limits. He Yunchong revealed a forced smile before he continued. I know exactly which opportunities there are in this cave mansion, however. Oh. Jian Wushuang shot a glance at He Yunchong. Follow me. The latter walked up front and led the way. As Jian Wushuang and company were capturing Josha Cave Mansion, things were happening far away in Pale Moon Marquee Camp, which was situated at the edge of flaming battlefield. In the middle of a huge tent were 3 thrones, upon which 3 people were seated. These 3 people each had an abnormally terrifying aura. They were way above the level of the Saint Realm, and were apparently 3 Lord-level super beings. However, their expressions were rather hideous at present. Several experts were standing deferentially in front of them. We have just received news that Josha Cave Mansion has been captured by experts from the enemy camp. The leader among the 3 lords was a burly middle-aged man with purple hair. His thunderous voice began to sound within the tent, causing the hearts of the stage 3 experts standing in front of him to shudder involuntarily. Chapter 423 Touched. Chapter 423 Touched. How is that possible? Josha Cave Mansion has actually been captured. There's a brutally powerful formation set up by my camp outside Josha Cave Mansion. It should have been very difficult to break through even if several lords worked together. The experts who were standing respectfully were shocked when they learned about the formation. The burly middle-aged man with purple hair continued. He Yunchong, who was one of the 2 Stage 3 experts guarding Josha Cave Mansion, is a spy sent by Drifting Blood Marquis. It was he who conspired with the enemy experts and helped them to capture the cave mansion. I hereby decree that He Yunchong shall be classified as a top priority assassination target, and that any expert in the camp who is related to him will be thoroughly interrogated. Anyone found to be closely related to him shall be immediately executed. The burly middle-aged man with purple hair resumed speaking after the series of orders were handed down. My camp controls 101 cave mansions, among which Josha Cave Mansion is only secondary in value to the 3 marquee cave mansions. Such an important cave mansion should never be allowed to fall into the hands of Drifting Blood Marquis. Send orders to assemble a group of experts immediately, and for the group to head to Josha Cave Mansion in the shortest time possible. Seize back Josha Cave Mansion while the enemy has yet to gain a firm foothold and fix up a formation. Yes. The Stage 3 experts acknowledged solemnly. By the way, hasn't Deng He just set out toward the inner area a while ago? He should be reaching the outer area by now. Send word to him immediately to take a trip to Josha Cave Mansion. The recapture won't be difficult with his assistance. The other 2 lords nodded their heads. They apparently had full confidence in Deng He, who the purple-haired man mentioned. After this order was handed down, it took only half a day for a group of experts to be assembled and to set off. Because of the tightness of time, the experts simply teleported using their space travel spells and quickly reached the outer area. Jian Wushuang and company were still looking around inside Josha Cave Mansion. There are 3 spots of opportunities in Josha Cave Mansion. He Yunchong was naturally very familiar with Josha Cave Mansion, having stayed here for so long. These spots can be classified into 2 different types. One is meant for Origin Enlightenment, while the other is for Sword Principle. Sword Principle? Bone King, Shuiyang and several others could not refrain from looking at Jian Wushuang. Including He Yunchong, there were 7 experts present. However, among them, only Jian Wushuang specialized in Sword Principle. Jian Wushuang subconsciously touched his own nose as a result of the attention he was getting. Swordsman, some luck you have. Bone King laughed. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Regarding the 2 spots of opportunities for Origin Enlightenment, exactly which origins are they meant for? Beast asked. The Raging Fire Origin and the Thunderbolt Origin, He Yunchong answered. Immediately, odd looks appeared on several faces. Those who had practiced either of these 2 origins were naturally delighted, whereas those who had never practiced either origin could only laugh bitterly. The opportunity for Sword Principle is right in that secret chamber. You can go in, Swordmaster, He Yunchong said. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang nodded his head and walked toward the secret chamber. Guys, don't you want to go in and have a look too? He Yunchong looked at Bone Shuiyang and company. Never mind. We aren't proficient in sword principle at all. The opportunity for it is useless to us, Beast replied. If it's an origin opportunity, we can try meditating for a while whether or not we're proficient in it. After all, knowing an extra origin may bring some benefit. However, I'm sure that no one here still specializes in sword principle, right? Bone King commented. The others nodded their heads in agreement. Subsequently, they walked toward the spots of opportunities for origin enlightenment. Jian Wushuang stood alone in the middle of the secret chamber, which was so empty and unfurnished that there was not even a stool. Chapter 424 Desperation. Chapter 424 Desperation. Every thrust of the sword was exerted explosively at the void ahead. The technique was not much different from that of the man depicted in the painting. However, the power and speed of the sword technique rose insanely with every thrust. Furthermore, there gradually emerged the consolidation of a resolve and a tireless essence. When the essence had consolidated to its peak, Jian Wushuang's eyes opened violently, only for a beam of intense light, which was akin to an electric arc, to shoot across the void. Subsequently, the long sword in his hand transformed into a beam of lightning and shot forth as well. Carrying a resolve and a tireless essence, the sword swept across and struck on the void directly ahead. Though the sword clearly did not hit any material object, and instead only struck the air in the secret chamber, it nevertheless caused the spread of an immaterial ripple. Boom! The air emitted a loud roar as if it was about to shatter completely. Desperation! Jian Wushuang sheathed his long sword. In his eyes flickered an intense radiance. What a terrifying move! It has not only a resolve but also a tireless essence. Although it expends an abnormally large amount of spiritual power, its power is truly incredible. Compared to the first move Traceless, it's stronger by nearly 10 times. It has certainly proven itself to be the strongest sword skill personally invented by the sword ancestors. He felt that Traceless, the first move of heart-killing sword technique, was not powerful enough, and therefore he rarely used it to fight. The second move was completely different, however. My offensive power has increased by nearly 10 times, simply by understanding the second move. Jian Wushuang felt pleased inwardly. It should be noted that his strength had spurted when he consolidated the origin mark, which thereby enabled him to compete with Stage 3 peak experts. Now, having understood the second move of heart-killing sword technique, his maximum offensive power had shot up by nearly 10 times. This meant that, in terms of offensive power, he had surpassed the vast majority of Stage 3 peak experts. At least, among the Stage 3 peak experts who had come along, Shuiyang and Beast could surely not compare to him in terms of offensive power. Neither was it clear whether Bone King, who was the strongest among them and was unrivaled at the heaven-defying level and below, could. And this was only regarding offensive power. It should be known that Jian Wushuang also possessed realms. If he used their suppressive abilities, he would remain capable of exerting his full power, whereas Bone King and the others would find their strengths affected and their offensive power greatly diminished. My speed and defensive skills are outstanding, and my self-preservation methods are extremely strong. Among the countless experts of the Saint Realm in Flaming Battlefield, only a handful are my match. My only weakness was that my offensive skills weren't the most powerful. But now, having understood the second move of heart-killing sword technique, this weakness has been offset completely. My overall strength has reached an entirely new level. A bright glint surged in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Previously, by relying on his realms, he gained the confidence to fight against experts on the same level as Beast and Shuiyang. However, the realms could only ensure that he would not be defeated. They did not help him to win outright against such experts. He would have been utterly trounced by enemies on Bone King's level. Now, however, he no longer needed to be afraid of facing Bone King. If they really fought, he could even confidently use his realms to stifle the latter somewhat. I have to thank this painting. After a brief moment of pleasant surprise, he looked at the painting once more. Among first-grade sword techniques, it should be one of the most powerful as well. However, because it was a single move, it could not be considered a truly complete sword skill. In any case, I still have to thank Josha Lord. After laughing briefly, he bent his body and bowed toward the painting. Only then did he quietly turn his body and walk out of the secret chamber. He made his way to the main palace of the cave mansion, only to see Bone King there alone. He guessed that Shui Yang beast, and the rest were still at the two spots of opportunities for origins. So fast. Bone King was surprised to see Jian Wushuang coming over. He subsequently laughed while asking, "How was it? Did you gain anything?" "Indeed." Jian Wushuang nodded his head, laughing. "Based on the look on your face, the gain must have been quite substantial," Bone King remarked with interest. Jian Wushuang did not reply but nodded internally. The gain was indeed huge, to the extent that he felt pleasantly surprised. He would not feel bad even if the ultimate task of this mission could not be completed and the 10,000 battle achievements could not be attained, for his gain was already very substantial. Bone King began to chat idly with Jian Wushuang in the main palace, but suddenly, boom! Several strong auras traveled forcefully toward them. An icy voice accompanied the auras and sounded thunderously in every corner of the cave mansion. "What audacity, y'all have to capture Josha Cave Mansion. None of you shall leave here alive." The faces of Jian Wushuang and Bone King turned grave like never before. "They have arrived." There was a slight heaviness in Bone King's voice. "It has only been half a day. Pale Moon Marquee Camp is quick indeed," Jian Wushuang muttered. Swish, 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 swish. Almost immediately, Shui Yang Beast and Company appeared within the main palace. "Lady Red, you shall continue to fix up the formation. Everyone else follow me out." As soon as Bone King spoke, the party except for Lady Red hurriedly headed toward the exit of the cave mansion, and swiftly reached the upper void outside. As soon as he had stepped out of the cave mansion, Jian Wushuang saw that there were many figures standing erect in the middle of the void ahead. They consisted of men and women, young and old. There were altogether 9 of them, and their auras were all exceptionally strong. Every one of them was a stage 3 peak expert. The leader among them was a blood-haired demonic youth whose demonic eyes could cause one's heart to lurch. Duo Xian Marquis. Upon seeing the demonic youth, even Bone King could not help his pupils from constricting. Like Bone King, Duo Xian Marquis was one of the experts in Flaming Battlefield who were the closest to the heaven-defying level. His way of doing things was eccentric, and he had given himself the title of Marquis. While he was similar in strength to Bone King, his fear factor was significantly greater than the latter's. Aside from him, the other 8 arrivers were each extremely famous in the inner area and exceptionally powerful. Including Duo Xian Marquis, the 9 of them's combined strength was way above that of Jian Wushuang's 7-man party. Chapter 425 A Fierce Battle. Chapter 425 A Fierce Battle. "So it's actually you, Bone King." The blood-haired demonic youth, Duo Xian Marquis, glanced at Bone King and Company. "You certainly have some guts to lead your men to capture a place as highly valued within Pale Moon Marquee Camp as Josha Cave Mansion. Duo Xian Marquis, I'm sure you haven't come to talk nonsense, right?" Bone King responded in an indifferent voice. "Aren't you pleased to say a few last words before your death?" The former mocked. "You think you can kill me?" The latter was even more disdainful. "You shall know right away whether I can." The Marquis did not waste any more breath. "Kill him." Swish, swish, swish. Beams of flowing light sped through the air murderously. "Leave Duo Xian Marquis to me, and be careful while taking care of the others. He Yun Chong being the weakest, you just have to ensnare one of them." After speaking, Bone King turned toward Jian Wushuang. "Swordsman, it's time to see what you're made of." "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and immediately summoned road to the underworld and tenfold realm. The 2 realms formed into a blood river which surged toward the enemies. The onrushing Duo Xian Marquis and Company were momentarily stunned. "These strange realms are causing me great suppression just by being in their midst. This person is probably the swordsman who came to prominence in the inner area recently, right? I've long heard that his realms are something else, and it does appear that they live up to their repute." Duo Xian Marquis's face turned grim. However, it's only his realm techniques which are troubling. His strength is terribly average. Spectre, find an opportunity to act and kill him. Yes. Following behind Duo Xian Marquis was a petite woman, veiled in a black robe, who acknowledged softly. They were both clear that Jian Wushuang's realms were a concern which was best taken care of as soon as possible. Kill. A killing intent surged in Bone King's eyes. He was the first to advance murderously at the enemies, while beside him Shuiyang, Beast and company quickly followed. Swish, 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 swish. Fast as thunderbolts, these figures quickly traversed the blood river and appeared in front of Pale Moon Marquis experts. Their speeds are considerably faster than ours under the suppression caused by the realms. Duo Xian Marquis' gaze was somber. He would be the first person Bone King came for. Duo Xian Marquis, it's been a long time since we fought. Time to play. Bone King sneered. Who's the scared one? Duo Xian Marquis snorted. A fan-shaped arc light swept forth and a blood-red wicked machete, which held a monstrous power, appeared in his hands. Although it was not first grade, it was certainly among the very best of the second grade. Bone King was indignant and brutal in response. He promptly slapped a palm, which was akin to a majestic mountain, forth. While Bone King and Duo Xian Marquis were exchanging blows, the other experts on both sides quickly did the same. At first, Pale Moon Marquis party was considerably stronger than Jian Wushuang's squad, and because it had 2 more Stage 3 peak experts than the latter, it should reasonably have had an absolute advantage. However, this advantage had been reduced to an extremely small amount thanks to the suppression from Jian Wushuang's realms. Take Shuiyang for example. His strength was already immense, but because of the realms, he could now easily fight alone against 2 Stage 3 peak experts. This went for Beast as well. Among the others, only He Yunchong was somewhat weaker. But because of the realm's effect, he managed to ensnare a rival Stage 3 peak expert who was unable to break from his grasp. His opponent was a green-clothed elder, who was also at the peak of Stage 3 in terms of battle strength. However, under Jian Wushuang's unceasing stream of sword light, the elder became helpless like never before. The latter laboriously swung the long staff in his hand and exchanged blows with the former time and again, but came off worse in every exchange. Bastard, who was it that said this swordsman's strength is average even though his realms are strong? The elder whined in his heart. Every one of his strikes reaches the threshold of the peak of Stage 3. Even without these realms I might not be able to defeat him. And with them, I'm completely not his match. From different sections of the battlefield, Bone King, Shuiyang, Beast, and the rest noticed what was going on, and could not help revealing their joy. Swordsman, good job, Bone King remarked. Haha. Seems like I underestimated you, Swordsman. Beast laughed brazenly. Previously, when they met at Bone King's cave mansion, he was somewhat derisive of Jian Wushuang, and felt that the latter was only good in realm technique. He completely belittled the latter's actual strength. But now, seeing the latter's fight against an expert from Pale Moon Marquis, he finally understood that Jian Wushuang's importance to this mission was far above his. It was only because of the swordsman's realms that they were able to contend with experts from Pale Moon Marquis camp despite having a severely weaker lineup. Furthermore, Jian Wushuang himself had displayed amazing strength and utterly outclassed a Stage 3 peak expert. Conversely, the expressions of the experts from Pale Moon Marquis camp were rather awful. This swordsman's strength is obviously much stronger than the rumors suggested. It has reached the peak of Stage 3. His realms are a huge problem. Spectre. Duo Xian Marquis called out softly. A silent ghost-like figure drifted forth. It was the petite woman who was veiled beneath a black robe. She had been waiting for an opportunity throughout and had yet to act. However, she finally got moving upon hearing Duo Xian Marquis words. Jian Wushuang was still fighting against the green-clothed elder. His casual strikes were packed with the battle strength of the peak of Stage 3, and together with the effect of the realms, were causing great misery to the elder. But right at this moment, he felt a shudder in his heart. It was a sense of danger. Killer. He was all too familiar with this feeling. He had been the target of numerous assassination attempts by Bloodfeather Tower in Nanyang Continent, and each time a Bloodfeather Tower killer sneaked up on him, he would have a feeling like the one he was currently having. Humph! With a grunt, Jian Wushuang abruptly transformed his body. He exerted the first phase of the triple shift. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang's body split open, and at once a beam of black light shot out from it, which did not spill a single drop of blood. Residual shadow? The petite black-robed woman was astounded on the spot. Chapter 426, A Frightful Sword Move. Chapter 426, A Frightful Sword Move. There was an invisible wave rippling around the black-robed, emaciated lady. At the same time, Jian Wushuang approached her quietly. He is so fast. The emaciated lady was shocked. Humph! Jian Wushuang snorted. Then his triple-kill sword lunged in her direction. Immediately she leaned to one side and narrowly dodged the sword. However, a sudden vast power gathered behind her, which was the long blood river that turned into a giant hand, crashing onto her. There was no more time for her to react after dodging the sword. Therefore, she was beaten back helter-skelter. It's time. A sharpness flashed in his eyes. Jian Wushuang suddenly moved. Danger! The green-clothed elder who had been suppressed by Jian Wushuang shouted and jumped in front of the emaciated lady, trying to hold off Jian Wushuang's attack. Seeing it, Jian Wushuang sneered and said, "You are asking for death." Jian Wushuang drew his sword. With a straight lunge, the triple-kill sword turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed out. Decisive and desperate. It went towards the green-clothed elder directly. The second move of heart-killing sword technique, desperation. Rumble, the world was shaking as the sword light shot out. This, the green-clothed elder couldn't help narrowing his eyes. Though the sword moves Jian Wushuang displayed before were powerful, when he fought with Jian Wushuang alone, he could fend off this attack if he tried his best. However, he felt helpless while facing the sword this time. A strong sense of crisis rose and his whole body broke out with gooseflesh. Oh no! Without hesitating, the green-clothed elder did his best to use his most powerful move. A pitch-black stick poked out. The pitch-black stick and the long sword clashed. Boom! The blood vessels of the green-clothed elder's hand burst. The long staff in that hand was flung away and his chest contained a big hole. The sword shadow continued rushing towards the emaciated lady behind the green-clothed elder. How could this be possible? The emaciated lady was in shock. But at this moment she could only make a small move. Boom! The sword shadow hit her. Immediately her right body burst and her whole right hand was disintegrated. A fierce pang of pain shot through her. She squeaked out shrill cries, but at the next moment, she turned and fled, not daring to look at Jian Wushuang again. Run! 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 The emaciated lady roared, and she had lost her nerve to fight. It was a sword of terror and intimidation. On the battlefield, experts of the two camps were in a fierce fight. When the sudden strong power broke out, they all looked at it, seeing the body of the green-clothed elder falling and the emaciated lady fleeing. What? This is... Everyone was stunned. Though they didn't see how Jian Wushuang did it. They were all in great shock. Two Peak of Stage 3 joined hands and fought with Jian Wushuang, but one died and the other fled. How could this be? They heard that it was the realm that Swordsman used, which was strange, but his real strength was weak and hadn't reached Peak of Stage 3 yet, had he? So how did he do it? Realizing what had happened, their faces changed. On the one hand, Bone King, Shuiyang, Beast and the others who were in the same camp with Jian Wushuang were all amazed and happy. On the other hand, experts of Pale Moon Marquis camp were sullen. What the hell is going on? He is much stronger than we thought. He could make us lose 2 Peak of Stage 3 with one blow. That terrible realm has been so troublesome. How could his strength be so strong? Duo Xian Marquis' face was grim. He shot a look at Jian Wushuang and cursed in mind. Damn it, Master Deng Hua, where are you? Why don't you show up? Oh. They all saw the hope of winning. But right at this moment, dung! A muffled sound rose from the far horizon. The weak sound was getting louder at an astonishing speed. beating like battle drums in their hearts, and all people on the battlefield stopped. They all looked at where the sound came from. They saw a sun. The sun was dazzling like the sun and moon. Seeing the sun, Duo Xi and Marquis relieved sighed. Finally he has arrived. All other experts of Pale Moon Marquis camp were happy while seeing the sun coming. They knew who he was. This is. Bone King also gazed at the far dazzling sun. Realizing who he might be, his face changed instantly. The muffled footsteps were still on and the sun approached. Then a white-robed figure walked out of the light. It was a white-robed and barefooted elder, who was gentle and mild like sunlight. Recognizing the white-robed elder, Bone King narrowed his eyes. Deng Hua. Chapter 427 Deng Hua's Arrival. Chapter 427 Deng Hua's Arrival. Deng Hua. Hearing his name, even though it was Jian Wushuang, he couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. On the flaming battlefield there were experts like Bone King, Duo Xi and Marquis and Shui Luo overlords, who few dared challenge. They were strong but not invincible. The real invincible ones were the 6 super experts of heaven-defying level. 6 heaven-defying experts for the 2 camps, each camp had 3. Deng Hua was one of those heaven-defying experts in the Pale Moon Marquis camp. On the entire flaming battlefield, they were the true supreme and invincible ones except for the lords. Heaven-defying level. Shuiyang, Beast and their companions had both eyes widely opened. They were all frightened while looking at Deng Hua. How could this be? Bone King roared. There are 3 heaven-defying experts in Pale Moon Marquis camp. Their status was even higher than some normal lords. They seldom come to the flaming battlefield. How could one appear here today? Bone King couldn't believe what he had seen. Experts of heaven-defying level came to the flaming battlefield only once in a long while. Even if they came, usually they went directly to the inner area. Once they went to the inner area, it took time for the Pale Moon Marquis to send them here. Today, how could an expert of heaven-defying level arrive within a day? There had to be a reason. Was Deng Hua just in the campsite of Pale Moon Marquis or setting out to the flaming battlefield when we attacked Joshua Cave Mansion? Bone King was thinking. Yes. Deng Hua set out from the campsite, and as soon as he arrived at the outer area he got the message, asking him to help Duo Xi and Marquis take back the Joshua Cave Mansion. Therefore he came immediately. Though he arrived later than Duo Xi and Marquis and his companions who used a space travel spell. Master Deng Hua. Master Deng Hua. Duo Xi and Marquis and the other experts of the Pale Moon Marquis camp saluted the white-robed elder. Deng Hua, an expert of heaven-defying level, was much stronger than those at peak of stage 3. Even it was Duo Xi and Marquis. He would respectfully address him as master. Deng Hua, the white-robed elder who seemed like standing in sunlight, assessed the situation quickly. When he saw the body of the green-clothed elder below and the emaciated lady, he turned sullen. 9 peak of stage 3 joined hands. Instead of defeating them, one of you died and another was heavily wounded. Such a humiliation. Deng Hua's cold voice echoed in the void. Hearing this, the experts of the Pale Moon Marquis camp felt embarrassed, but no one dared contradict him. If it were another expert who said that, Duo Xi and Marquis would have been angry. But it was Deng Hua, so he dared not express his discontent. And stupid. Deng Hua continued. You are here to take back Joshua Cave Mansion. However, you're trapped in a fight with them outside the cave mansion. Given more time, people in the cave mansion will finish the formation, and then, what can you do even if you kill them all? Then the Joshua Cave Mansion will be taken away from us, wouldn't it? Experts of Pale Moon Marquis camp were all stunned and bitterly smiled. They knew what he meant, but what could they do? No one was able to get past the fight to enter into the cave mansion. Deng Hua looked at Jian Wushuang and the others. I'm going to seek opportunities in the cave mansion. It's better to settle the fight here as quickly as possible. As he finished talking, Deng Hua turned into a dazzling light and rushed towards the entrance of Joshua Cave Mansion below. Damn it! Jian Wushuang and Bone King, as well as the others, immediately realized his intentions. Lady Red was alone establishing her formation in the Joshua Cave Mansion. She was just a normal pinnacle of the Saint Realm. If Deng Hua found her, she would be killed easily. If he did that, they would fail their task. I'm going to stop him. Bone King was going to try to stop Deng Hua, but before he could leave, Duo Xian Marquis immediately stopped him. Bone King, where are you going? Duo Xian Marquis said with a cold smile. Bastard! Bone King cursed inside. He had to stop and deal with Duo Xian Marquis first. As for Shui Yang Beast and the others, their strength was not high enough to stop Deng Hua. Even if they could, they were busy fighting with others. Only Jian Wushuang could do it. You stay here and stop Duo Xian Marquis and his companions. I will deal with Deng Hua. Jian Wushuang said with a stern face. Swordsman! Bone King, Shui Yang and the others frowned, not because they didn't believe Jian Wushuang, but rather Deng Hua was too strong and only Bone King was capable of fighting with him. Even if it was only for a short while. Now they could do nothing but pray that Jian Wushuang could survive. Though it was a slim chance. If Jian Wushuang failed, they would have to flee as soon as possible. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang followed Deng Hua and rushed into the Josha Cave mansion. Once Jian Wushuang left, the blood river vanished. Experts of the Pale Moon Marquis camp felt a sense of relief. Duo Xian Marquis clenched his right hand with light flashing in his eyes. Bone King, I could not fully use my strength under the realm just now. Let's fight again. Duo Xian Marquis said in a deep voice. Humph, bring it on. Bone King's face was cold and stern. Shui Yang Beast and others were also eager to battle. If it were moments ago, it was difficult for them to fend against those experts without the help of Jian Wushuang's realm. But now, the green-clothed elder was killed and the black-robed emaciated lady was heavily wounded. Their battle strength was almost the same and an equal fight was possible. Come on! Bone King roared. The two camps erupted into a fierce fight. Chapter 428 Fight with a Heaven-Defying Expert. Chapter 428. Fight with a Heaven-Defying Expert. Bang! As soon as Deng Hua entered the Josha Cave mansion, he started searching desperately. Soon he found Lady Red, who was building the formation in the main shrine. There she is. A coldness flashed in Deng Hua's eyes. Lady Red was establishing the complicated formation. She needed to arrange it involving many areas within the cave mansion, including its main shrine. Suddenly a thunderous sound boomed. Lady Red turned and was astonished to find Deng Hua rushing towards her. Before Deng Hua reached Lady Red, Jian Wushuang, who followed Deng Hua all the way, shot a look at Deng Hua. Whoosh! The vast blood realm stretched and surrounded Deng Hua. Suppressed by the realm, Deng Hua slowed down a little. Triple shift. Jian Wushuang shot forward like a flowing light, flying through the void with a residual shadow left in the air. He passed by Deng Hua and arrived before Lady Red first. Oh! Deng Hua stopped and flashed a look of surprise at Jian Wushuang. Nice speed. Swordsman. Lady Red was relieved after seeing Jian Wushuang. Leave him to me, continue your work. Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Lady Red nodded and stepped back. She knew that there was nothing she could do for the fight. Who are you? Deng Hua stared at Jian Wushuang with a cold and haughty face. Swordsman, Jian Wushuang replied. Swordsman? I have not heard about you. Deng Hua shook his head, shot a disdainful look at Jian Wushuang. You are not thinking you can stop me, are you? How would I know if I don't have a try? Jian Wushuang said with a cold smile. At the same time, a powerful stream of battle intent arose. A heaven-defying level. This was the first time he had fought with a real expert of the heaven-defying level. He had not dared to fight with an expert of heaven-defying level before. After the Josha Cave mansion, he had comprehended the second move of heart-killing sword technique, and his offense had increased. Therefore, he was eager to fight against an expert of heaven-defying level. I want to know how wide the gap between me and a real expert of nature-defying level is. Jian Wushuang licked his lips. Seeing the battle intent in Jian Wushuang's eyes, Deng Hua sneered, seeking death. After saying that, Deng Hua charged toward Jian Wushuang with a cyan saber in his hand and a big and tall saber soul phantom on his back. Heaven-defying experts had all generated souls. For example, Deng Hua had built a saber soul. It was nearly 20 meters high, which was a second-grade saber soul. Boy, show me whether you are able to survive my saber, Deng He roared, raising his cyan saber and slashing at Jian Wushuang, as if it was splitting the heavens. With the blessings of his saber soul, it was powerful enough to frighten Stage 3 experts. However, Jian Wushuang was waiting for it with keen, sparkling eyes. Good. Then he became serious. 2 first-grade sword soul phantoms rose behind him, which seemed much taller and bigger than Deng He's. Jian Wushuang stepped forward and thrust his triple-kill sword. The sword shadow rushed out like lightning. It was the second move of heart-killing sword technique. Desperation. A move with almost all his power. It was powerful enough to impale a Stage 3 expert's body, and hurt another one heavily. Then the lighting sword shadow crashed with the blade light. Boom! The whole Jiuxia cave mansion shook, and the horrifying power wave caused by their collision spread out overwhelmingly. It shattered many stone stools, tables and decorations in the main shrine. In a blink of an eye, the main shrine was flattened, full of broken stone and dust. Lady Red, who had retreated to the outside, was shocked after seeing the scene. She knew she would have died if she had not escaped the wave. In the center of the main shrine, the two forces separated after a good while, both Jian Wushuang and Deng He stepping back simultaneously. Deng He came to a stop and looked at Jian Wushuang, seriously rather than disdainfully. When he saw the 2 sword soul phantoms behind Jian Wushuang, he narrowed his eyes slightly. Double first-grade sword soul, it seems I underestimated you. He didn't pay attention to Jian Wushuang until now. But after a short fight, he was surprised by Jian Wushuang's battle strength. The sword move he displayed was almost as powerful as mine, nearly reaching nature-defying level. Deng He thought secretly, I thought Bone King was the strongest among them, but didn't expect that Swordsman is much stronger than Bone King. Bone King was just capable of fighting with him. He wouldn't be a threat to Deng He. But Jian Wushuang was much stronger than Bone King. It drew Deng He's attention. During the last fight, Deng He could not establish an advantage over him. Deng He, you're a top expert of heaven-defying level. Is this your strength? Jian Wushuang stared at Deng He with furious eyes. You're challenging me. As you wish. Deng He's voice was cold. However, his battle strength was increasing and his white robe fluttered in the breeze. As he finished talking, he stepped forward. Whoosh, a thrilling sonic boom spread in the void. He was more powerful than before. Is this your full strength? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. That's what I'm expecting. Azura secret skill. Bridge of helplessness. Boom! The whole Jiuxia cave mansion was shaken. On the edge of the Blood River, a towering long blood bridge suddenly appeared, extending to the end of the river at an amazing speed. Jian Wushuang stood on the bridge. A large amount of blood-red energy gathered around his body, as if he was an Azura in a blood-red armor. His battle strength jumped too, which was now no less than Deng He's. Chapter 429 Fight. Fight. Chapter 429 Fight. Fight. Bridge of Helplessness. Jian Wushuang had mastered it when he was in Nanyang continent. It was powerful but used too much spiritual power. Therefore, Jian Wushuang generally didn't use it. Fighting with Deng He, an expert of heaven-defying level, he had to use it. Fight! A deep shout rose, then a strong sense of battle intent surged in Jian Wushuang. He was like a marvelous Azura in scarlet armor. Pushing out with his feet, Jian Wushuang jumped up to the void with a roar. The 2 sword soul phantoms behind him were also full of battle intent. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Deng He. Boom! A sword stabbed out decisively and desperately. It was still the second move of heart-killing sword technique, desperation. Deng He's look was frosty. When the sword approached him, he felt pressured. Acting with caution, he raised his cyan saber and waved it with all his forces. One by one, the dazzling light flashed like a sun. Apparently, Deng He was also using his best moves. Bang! An explosion erupted, releasing a power which seemed to almost destroy the world. Before the impact forces dissipated completely, Jian Wushuang moved his sword forcefully to counter the impact force. Whoosh! 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 3 moves of desperation in succession were displayed, and each one was fast and decisive. Humph! Deng Hu snorted. The dazzling light on him was shining even brighter, and the cyan saber in his hand was also sending out beams one by one. In a twinkling they fought at close quarters. Bang! 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 The constant bangs vibrated in the Jiosha cave mansion. Luckily it was an impregnable cave mansion built by the Jiosha lord himself, otherwise, such a fierce fight would have destroyed it. Bang! With another roar, both Jian Wushuang and Deng Hu were forced back. Deng Hu backed and leaned on the wall, looking at Jian Wushuang in shock. Where does this young man come from? He can fight with me like this. Deng Hu was surprised. He was good at fighting at close quarters. If fighting at close quarters, he was capable of battling with the lord. But he was unable to suppress Jian Wushuang in the last several attacks. At this moment, Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of excitement. He also admitted, Deng Hu is really a super expert of heaven-defying level. He has faced desperation more than 10 times in succession with the help of Bridge of Helplessness, but none of them prevailed. Compared with a super expert of heaven-defying level, I'm much weaker. Jian Wushuang knew that he had tried his best right now. As his strongest move, desperation was powerful but at the same time consumed his spiritual power. What's more, he also used 2 secret skills. Road to the Underworld and Bridge of Helplessness. Especially the Bridge of Helplessness, it consumed spiritual power too much and too quickly. In such a short moment, he had consumed more than 80% of his spiritual power, and had too little left to continue fighting with Deng Hu. Though he had more spiritual power than normal Saint Realm because of his heavenly creation skill. If it were anyone else, their spiritual power would have been used up. Compared to Deng Hu, whose breath was still strong, although he had used some spiritual power, his battle strength was still powerful. That was because he used what he was good at, which only consumed very little spiritual power. They are really powerful movements. However, the more powerful they are, the more difficult it is to use them. It seems you have exhausted most of your spiritual power, haven't you? Deng Hu looked at Jian Wushuang. Having double first-grade sword soul, you have more potential than me, and it's possible for you to surpass me. But now you have no chance. While saying this, a stream of killing intent was gathering in Deng Hu's eyes. He was shocked by Jian Wushuang's potential, especially his double first-grade sword soul. Even if it was him, he had made great efforts to have a second-grade sword soul. Such a peerless genius of great potential, who is also an expert of the opposing camp. How could Deng Hu let him off? Boy, go to hell! Deng Hu shouted and came at Jian Wushuang again. Jian Wushuang's breath had weakened and the blood river, including the Bridge of Helplessness, had vanished. Chapter 430 Explode 3 Blood Gems. Chapter 430. Explode 3 Blood Gems. Under the gaze of Jian Wushuang, the blood puppet collided against Deng Hu. With a cold face, Deng Hu angrily slashed out his cyan saber, whose blade light immediately turned into a sun with overwhelming power. The blood puppet had condensed the power in its fist, and forcefully punched out. It was as if 2 stars were colliding head-on. An intangible blast wave rippled out, making the main hall that was already heavily damaged suffer even more destruction. The blood puppet consumed 3 blood gems. Jian Wushuang tightly stared forward with sparkling eyes. When the 2 collided, that Deng Hu did not take the blood puppet seriously, but when the power of the fist of the blood puppet really erupted, boom! The saber in his hand at that moment was hit aside, and a strong power was transmitted along his arm. What? Deng Hu was aghast. When the great power moved up his arm, he could not help grunting, followed by vomiting out a big mouthful of blood. Then his body was forced backward in an ugly way. As a dignified super expert at the heaven-defying level, he was hurt heavily by a punch of the blood puppet. If Deng Hu was careless or did not try his best, it may have been understandable. Yet, he had given his full effort just now and had wielded his most powerful saber technique, yet was hurt heavily by a single punch. Seeing this, a happy expression grew in Jian Wushuang's eyes. As expected, the blood puppet consuming one blood gem could directly outclass Xue Luo, the overlord among experts of Stage 3. If it consumes 2 blood gems, the blood puppet could compete with the ordinary heaven-defying expert. With 3 blood gems, of course the battle strength of the blood puppet would be more powerful than the heaven-defying level. The more blood gems the blood puppet consumed, the stronger it would be in battle. The power of 3 blood gems was indeed far beyond the ordinary heaven-defying level, at least much stronger than Deng Hua. Having heavily hurt Deng Hua with a punch, the blood puppet did not stop, but attacked Deng Hua again. Its order from Jian Wushuang was to kill Deng Hua, so before finishing the task, the blood puppet would not stop. Damn it! Deng Hua's countenance changed greatly when he saw the blood puppet rushing towards him again. With one collision, he had been frightened by the blood puppet. Where does this terrifying blood puppet come from? Strength is even above mine. Even those lord experts would be hard-pressed to find such a powerful puppet fighter. How could this guy get one? Deng Hua was in disbelief. When the blood puppet rushed towards him, he was wiser and did not collide against it again. Instead, he decided to fight against the blood puppet with his speed and technique. However, he quickly found that the blood puppet was more powerful than him in strength, speed, and defense. It outclassed him in nearly every aspect. Its only disadvantage was that it had no intelligence, so its attacks were simple, without using skills. Relying only on its overwhelming strength and incredible speed, however, the blood puppet had placed Deng Hua in an extremely difficult position. This puppet fighter is just an iron block. I slashed him with my full strength, but it was nothing to him. His strength and speed are much superior than mine. Even though my strength could become the twice of the current level, I'm afraid I would not be able to defeat it. Deng Hua was shocked. He had clashed with the blood puppet several times. Yet, after the brief fight, he had no means to defeat it. My speed is lower than the puppet fighter. With his interference, I have no method to be able to kill the swordsman and that person deploying the formation. Instead, once the swordsman's spiritual power has recovered and he displays his realm again, in conjunction with the puppet fighter, I'll have no chance to survive. Deng Hua's pupils slightly shrank. When he was fighting against the blood puppet, he was observing Jian Wushuang not far away. While Deng Hua was fighting against the blood puppet, Jian Wushuang was swallowing elixirs and quietly recovering his spiritual power. Now, most of his spiritual power had been recovered. Once it was completely recovered, and Jian Wushuang used his realm to suppress him, it would be over. Anyway, if Jian Wushuang alone exerted his full strength, Deng Hua would be afraid. If Jian Wushuang, at his peak status, fought together with the puppet fighter against him, he would not be able to survive at all. I have to leave. He felt helpless. There was no other way. Jian Wushuang's ability was far beyond his imagination. The strength Jian Wushuang desperately displayed before had already stunned him. What's more astonishing, this puppet fighter turned up. This puppet fighter was too terrifying. It was absolutely the most terrifying puppet fighter Deng Hua had seen in his whole life. With this puppet fighter alone, Deng Hua could never kill Jian Wushuang or Lady Red. There was no use for him to stay there. Naturally, he needed to leave. Bang! Colliding against the blood puppet again, Deng Hua's face turned paler, after which, Deng Hua created some distance again from the blood puppet. You're lucky this time. With a cold snort, Deng Hua suddenly turned around and rushed out of the cave mansion. He wanted to leave, but Jian Wushuang did not agree. Want to run? Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold. Is it so easy to leave? Blood puppet, hunt him. Jian Wushuang directly sent out his order. Meanwhile, 70% of his spiritual power had recovered. Due to the heavenly creation skill, Jian Wushuang's spiritual power recovery was faster than the experts of the same rank. In addition, he had consecutively swallowed elixirs. Naturally, the recovery was very fast. 70% spiritual power is too little to use the bridge of helplessness and would not last long, but it is enough to use the road to the underworld. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. He focused his thoughts. Immediately, an overwhelming killing intent rolled out, and a long blood river flew out again. The blood river moved too quickly, and Deng Hua was covered at once. A powerful suppressive force was placed upon Deng Hua's body. Deng Hua's face turned solemn. He glanced at Jian Wushuang behind him and shouted in a low voice, "Boy, I have decided to retreat. What are you going to do?" "What am I going to do? Do I need to tell you?" Jian Wushuang sneered. "You have consumed 3 of my blood gems. If I let you leave, wouldn't I lose too much?" Vast killing intent surged in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He wanted to kill Deng Hua. Chapter 431 Chase and Kill. Chapter 431 Chase and Kill. "Kill me? Are you able to?" Flames of fury were surging in Deng Hua's eyes. He was a genuine heaven-defying expert. Even faced with an ordinary lord, he was able and prepared to fight with his strength. In the entire flaming battlefield with no lord at present, who dared to think about killing him? Even the 3 heaven-defying experts at the Drifting Blood Marquis side did not dare to say that. But now Jian Wushuang wanted to kill him. "You'll know whether I am able to immediately." Jian Wushuang did not say too much. With the blood river suppression, the blood puppet had rushed in front of Deng Hua as soon as possible. When the blood puppet's fist attacked him again, Deng Hua's mouth corners twitched a little, but he had to defend with his full strength. With a huge bang, Deng Hua was forced backward by several steps. Before he obtained his balance again, however, a shadow turned up in front of him. An icy cold sword light, with a decisive and desperate intent, violently thrust at his head. Deng Hua's face turned pale. He immediately wielded his saber, which collided against the icy cold sword light. And then, the counterforce quickly generated a distance between the two. "This boy." Deng Hua looked at Jian Wushuang with fear. His spiritual power was running out. In such a short period it has almost recovered. How could that happen? Deng Hua was stunned. However, he did not know that Jian Wushuang had cultivated heavenly creation skill, which was originally in defiance of the natural order. Not only was his spiritual power recovery speed very high, but his elixir absorption speed was also very frightening. For elixir or spiritual liquid that could slowly enhance spiritual power, other warriors needed a long time to absorb them, but Jian Wushuang could absorb them much faster with the heavenly creation skill. He had just swallowed elixir to recover his spiritual power. Naturally, the effect of the elixir was quickly absorbed, so in a short instant, much of his spiritual power had been recovered. "Damn!" Deng Hua had an uneasy expression. The blood puppet and Jian Wushuang were fighting. The worst scene appeared in front of Deng Hua. "Run!" Without any hesitation, Deng Hua turned around and violently rushed out of the cave mansion. "Go!" The killing intent was surging in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The triple kill sword in his hand was vibrating like crazy as he chased with the blood puppet. Oh! Outside the Josha cave mansion, the fierce battle between the 2 camps were still going on and had turned white hot. The situation was very horrifying. In the Drifting Blood Marquis camp of the 2 camps, He Yunchong was the weakest one and had been slaughtered. Besides, Zhu Hua, an invited top expert of Stage 3, had also been slaughtered. Hence 2 people had died. In the Pale Moon Marquis camp, except for the green-clothed elder who was killed by Jian Wushuang, another top expert of Stage 3 had died. Besides, 2 people were heavily hurt. This fierce battle was still in a deadlock. When fighting against Bone King, Duo Exine Marquis glanced at the entry of the cave mansion below from time to time. "All the experts of the Drifting Blood Marquis camp are fighting against us here, so there should be an expert deploying the formation as well as swordsmen in the cave mansion. It should be very easy for Master Deng Hua to kill them with his strength. Why haven't I seen him come out yet?" Duo Exine Marquis and the other experts from the Pale Moon Marquis camp had full confidence in Deng Hua's strength. In the entire flaming battlefield, with no lord at present, Deng Hua, the heaven-defying expert, was invincible. Bone King and the others were very worried. The situation here is stabilized. Now the key lies in the cave mansion. I am not sure whether Swordsman can pin down Deng Hua. Bone King thought. He did not expect Jian Wushuang to rival Deng Hua. He just hoped Jian Wushuang could pin down the latter, so that Lady Red would have a chance to deploy the formation. But right at this moment, Bang! A huge roar was heard from the cave mansion below, followed by a figure who violently shot out like a cannonball. He's emerged. The battling experts from the two camps looked over across the void. It was seen that a figure was rapidly retreating. Obviously, that man had been forced out of the cave mansion. After he was able to stand steadily, his old face became apparent with bloodstains at the corners of his mouth. This is Master Deng Hua? Having clearly seen the face, the experts from the Pale Moon Marquis camp could not help but feel shocked. Suddenly, from inside that cave mansion, two figures, one after another, quickly rushed out. The figure in front was scarlet, and appeared extremely strong. He directly rushed towards Deng Hua like an ancient fierce beast. Then a fist with the strength of billions of tons, with terrifying power surging inside it, directly struck out at Deng Hua. Deng Hua was aware how terrifying that scarlet figure was, so he did not dare to resist. His figure dodged and violently retreated. Bang! The tremendous fist was struck the empty space, but power still exploded and shook the entire sky and earth. This then penetrated the void and passed to the ground below. Immediately, the ground was lifted into the air. Dust was flying everywhere. A huge pit covering hundreds of meters, as deep as 10 meters, appeared. Deng Hua, who had just evaded the punch of the blood puppet and seen the power of that punch, was not even able to feel lucky before an icy cold sword shadow, like lightning, violently flashed towards his head with decisive killing intent. It was still that sword. It was Jian Wushuang's strongest unique skill. Damn it! Deng Hua cursed in his mind. He dared not fend off the blood puppet's attacks. Jiang Wushuang's strongest sword skill, however, was also of unusual power. He could easily fend it off in normal combat, but just now he had just escaped from the blood puppet's attack with no time to use proper techniques to fend it off. He had to move aside in a ferocious struggle. The lightning-like sword shadow penetrated the void beside Deng Hua's body and directly hit the cliff of the mountain behind them. The mountain was utterly penetrated, showing a spiral cave. Having seen the power of the sword, Deng Hua's face could not help but twitch a little. His body crazily rushed out. With cold eyes, Jian Wushuang did not intend to let Deng Hua go. With the help of the Blood River realm, he rushed out to chase Deng Hua. Quickly, Jian Wushuang, the blood puppet, and Deng Hua disappeared into the distant horizon. In the void outside the Jiuxia cave mansion, everyone was stunned. The experts from both the Drifting Blood Marquis camp and the Pale Moon Marquis camp were all stunned. Deng Hua, Master Deng Hua, is running away and being pursued. He is fleeing. How could it be possible? Deng Hua, the super expert at the heaven-defying level, the absolute invincible being at the Saint Realm, was fleeing. What's more, they had seen clearly that the man who was chasing Deng Hua was Jian Wushuang, together with a puppet fighter of terrifying strength. Stunned. Everyone was stunned. Chapter 432 Deng Hua, you cannot escape. Chapter 432, Deng Hua, you cannot escape. Swordsman, Bone King, Shuiyang, and Beast were astonished and looked at him with widened eyes. Before that, they had just hoped that Jian Wushuang could pin down Deng Hua, so that Lady Red would be able to deploy the formation. They had never expected anything else. But now, what had they seen? Jian Wushuang was chasing Deng Hua. Yes, he was chasing. What's more, whether Deng Hua could escape was unclear. Swordsman wants to kill Deng Hua. Even thinking of this possibility was breathtaking for everyone. Deng Hua was a heaven-defying expert. In the entire flaming battlefield, with no lord at present, he was definitely invincible. There had been so many battles at the flaming battlefield. When had a heaven-defying expert been pursued? Today's pursuit was definitely the first time. Oh, the flaming battlefield stretched across 8 million kilometers and was very vast. The outer area alone was incomparably vast. The experts from the two big camps, the groups formed by numerous experts of Stage 2, were fiercely fighting in the outer area. At this moment, just in the vast void of the outer area, two small teams were fiercely battling. Kill. Send them to hell. Their battle was extremely intense. At this moment, however, from the distant horizon, A huge blood river was fast floating towards them. Deng Hua, you cannot escape. A cold voice resounded throughout the sky, making the two teams, who were in a fierce battle, stop fighting. Many pairs of eyes began to look over at the blood river. Deng Hua? Which Deng Hua? All the experts from the small team of the Pale Moon Marquis camp were somewhat astounded. However, very soon, they saw the white-robed elder, who was crazily fleeing in front of the blood river. The aura sent out by the white-robed elder made everyone tremble. The experts of the small team from the Pale Moon Marquis camp immediately recognized the white-robed elder. Master Deng Hua. That is Master Deng Hua. The invincible Master Deng Hua. One of the 3 heaven-defying level experts in our Pale Moon Marquis camp. One scream after another was heard, astonishing the experts of the small team from the Drifting Blood Marquis camp. They were not very familiar with Deng Hua, but hearing heaven-defying level was enough to astonish them. Yet the scene in front of them shocked everyone. Master Deng Hua is being pursued. How could this be possible? It's impossible. The experts of the small team from the Pale Moon Marquis camp gave one exclamation after another to express their shock. Hurry up. Let's follow them. The expert team from the Drifting Blood Marquis camp were extremely excited. They stopped the battle at once. Both teams followed them simultaneously. Actually, the commotion of Jian Wushuang chasing Deng Hua was very disruptive. He had been chasing for tens of thousands miles from the Josha Cave Mansion. The expert teams they had come across were far more than just these two. Yet everyone was shocked by this scene. Many teams wanted to follow, but unfortunately, they could not catch up with their speed. In the midst of the blood river, Deng Hua's face was extremely gloomy. His aura had weakened a lot. There was no way out for him. Trapped in the blood river, his speed was limited. However, Jian Wushuang and that blood puppet, who were originally very fast, were faster than him with the assistance of the blood river, and caught up very quickly. Every time after they caught up, he would try his best to fend them off, and then using the counterforce to generate some distance. Over and over, his wounds were adding up, and he could not repeat it anymore. With this blood river I can't escape. If it continues like this, I'll really die here. I have no other choice but can only use that. Deng Hua grit his teeth tightly. In his eyes there was a strong sense of unwillingness. Suddenly, Deng Hua stopped and turned around. Stopped running away. Jian Wushuang and the blood puppet also stopped. The former shot a glance at the latter, and nodded quietly. From the start of the attack till now, a quarter of an hour had passed, but the blood puppet still had some residual strength. Consuming 1 blood gem can only support the blood puppet for half a quarter. Now I have spent 3 blood gems, not only making it more powerful but also making it last longer. Jian Wushuang thought secretly. In the blood river, Deng Hua looked a mess and was staring at Jian Wushuang with beast-like eyes. Swordsman! Deng Hua shouted. Near the blood river, a lot of expert teams from the 2 big camps had caught up, observing the scene. When they heard Swordsman, a commotion was raised. Swordsman! The man chasing Deng Hua is called Swordsman. I know about this Swordsman. It's heard that he has just arrived in the inner area recently. It's said that he owns an extremely powerful realm technique, but his own strength is not very strong. But now it seems the hearsay is wrong. His battle strength is terrifying. The scarlet figure beside him should be a puppet fighter. It is so strong. The swordsman does not only possess powerful strength and realm, but also has an awesome puppet fighter. He is so terrifying. Master Deng Hua has stopped running. He knows he has nowhere to go and plans to wage a life and death battle? The followed experts nearby were discussing in low voices. Swordsman! Deng Hua stared at Jian Wushuang with killing intent flashing in his eyes. I admit I lose this time. Don't be smug. What has happened today will be doubled upon you when we meet next time. Next time. Jian Wushuang slightly narrowed his eyes. This Deng Hua had been forced into such a position. He wanted next time? What? You really think you can kill me? Deng Hua sneered scornfully, and then turned his hand upside down. A token appeared in his hand, with a strange wave in it. That wave was very familiar to Jian Wushuang. It was similar to a wormhole. That is, Jian Wuxiang stared at the token in Deng Hua's hand. Deng Hua was also staring at the token in his hand, unwilling to give it up. This transfer slip is the most valuable treasure I have after so many adventures in cave mansions. After so many years, no one has ever forced me to use this token but you. Swordsman. You are a nobody. I have never heard of you before. Today's battle, however, will become your stepping stone. Very soon, your name will spread across the entire flaming battlefield. Yet I'll find you very quickly, and then I'll slaughter you by myself. Chapter 433. There is no next time. Chapter 433. There is no next time. Deng Hua's words were sonorous and forceful, with towering killing intent. The numerous experts hiding nearby couldn't help but change their countenance. I thought Master Deng Hua knew he had nowhere to go, so decided to wage a life-and-death battle with Swordsman. But now it's not like that at all. Master Deng Hua is really a heaven-defying expert. He has so many measures. He even owns a transfer slip. It's a transfer slip. This is equivalent to a life. Such a treasure is of extraordinary value. I'm afraid Master Deng Hua will feel awful that he had to use it. This master swordsman could force Master Deng Hua to escape with a transfer slip. He really has marvelous skills. Many of the experts were gasping in admiration. Transfer slip. Jian Wuxiang's pupils slightly shrank. He had heard about transfer slips. Its nature was similar to that of the space travel spell, both of which could be used to transfer people across space. However, the transfer slip was far more valuable than the space travel spell. The space travel spell could only connect two fixed spaces, with one wormhole as the center and the token as one junction. When transferring with the space travel spell, people could only be transferred to that wormhole, and at the other side of the wormhole some preparation was needed. Besides, even if using the space travel spell, the formation of the wormhole needed some time. Hence, at the crucial moment of life and death, the space travel spell would not be useful. After all, at the moment of life and death, you would have no time to wait for the slow formation of the wormhole. Besides, the connection between spaces was not steady enough. A random attack from the opponent would utterly destroy the wormhole. Therefore, the space travel spell was generally used for long-distance travel only. However, a transfer slip was different. The token itself was the center, and a wormhole would be quickly formed around the token. Then, the owner of the token could freely transfer to any place within range through the wormhole. It was equivalent to direct teleportation. In terms of escaping at the crucial moment, it was absolutely the best life-saving treasure. A transfer slip was extremely valuable. In the treasure vault of the Drifting Blood Marquis camp, there had never been such a treasure as a transfer slip. After being stared at by Jian Wuxiang, Deng Hua, who was trapped in the blood river and had nowhere to go, directly crushed the transfer slip in his hand. When the token was crushed, a strange space wave immediately rippled out. In the center of the blood river beside Deng Hua, a complete wormhole quickly appeared. It was so fast and so steady that Jian Wuxiang could not prevent it even though he wanted to. Swordsman, very soon we'll meet again. Deng Hua's voice was cold, after which he stepped slowly into the wormhole. Next time. A cold smile appeared at the corners of Jian Wuxiang's mouth. There is no next time. The chilly voice echoed between heaven and earth. Deng Hua, who was going to step into the wormhole, shot a glance at Jian Wuxiang unconsciously, but found the latter's face had turned red with a sense of madness flashing in his eyes. Azura's secret skill, the third move, 18 levels of hell. Boom! The blood river roared. Above the blood river, a blood cloud swirled, forming a huge vortex. In the vortex there was an 18-floor scarlet pavilion, slowly descending. Inside the pavilion, some ghost shadows were faintly visible, crazily screaming and roaring until the scarlet pavilion completely landed. The scarlet pavilion directly pressed upon Deng Hua's body. Buzzing. A blast of invisible waves spread out. Jian Wuxiang had displayed the 18 levels of hell only once when he was desperate. At that time he had to display it with the soul-devouring secret skill, as well as the power of elixir and blood essence. Even though his strength had risen by several levels now, using this technique was still very difficult. At this moment, the use of this technique had utilized all his residual spiritual power and forced him to swallow several elixirs again. Only then could this technique be used. The power of this technique was incredible. When the Scarlet Pavilion landed and pressed upon Deng Hua, his pupils suddenly shrank with fear and astonishment. The 18 levels of hell were completely different from the road to the underworld and the bridge of helplessness. What was most terrifying in the 18 level of hell was the incredible deterrence, which directly targeted a person's consciousness and could trap someone forcefully. Like now, under this huge pressure, Deng Hua's consciousness seized up, and he was unable to step into the wormhole. Just like a fool, he stood there looking absent-minded. The pause was very brief and fleeting. To an ordinary people, such a pause meant nothing. However, for someone with Jian Wushuang's strength, this brief pause was crucial. "Blood puppet, kill him!" Jian Wushuang angrily shouted. The blood puppet beside him immediately rushed out and appeared in front of Deng Hua in an instant. It punched at Deng Hua's head. After a brief pause, Deng Hua's consciousness recovered, just to find the blood puppet in front of him. At that moment, the latter's fist was only half a centimeter from his face. At such a close distance, Deng Hua was utterly unable to react. "No!" With a shrill roar, Deng Hua's head completely exploded and he died. Before his death, one of his feet had already stepped into that wormhole, just leaving his body outside, but finally, he would never step into it. It was silent. The entire heaven and earth became silent at this moment. The experts from the small teams, who were watching in the void, were all astounded. "He is dead. Deng Hua is dead." Deng Hua, the super expert at the heaven-defying level, the invincible expert of the flaming battlefield, has been killed. He took out his transfer slip, but at the very last moment, he was unable to escape. The atmosphere was electric. The entire crowd was shocked. Totally incredible. What on earth was Swordsman's last technique? What a terrifying technique. Did you see it? Deng Hua was made into a fool by that technique. He could not move even a little, and the puppet fighter killed him. Too strong. Swordsman is too strong. Everyone was terrified, and the crowd was boiling with excitement. In the flaming battlefield, there were countless deaths. The fall of an expert was usually an ordinary matter. However, the fallen expert this time was Deng Hua, one of the 3 heaven-defying experts of the Pale Moon Marquis camp. In the flaming battlefield, with no lord at present, the heaven-defying experts were invincible, and that was acknowledged to all. In the thousands of years of battle in the flaming battlefield, there had been some heaven-defying experts killed, but they were all killed by lords. But today, the man who had killed Deng Hua, the heaven-defying expert, was at the Saint Realm. His name was Jian Wushuang. Chapter 434 Made a Killing. Chapter 434 Made a Killing. The Scarlet Pavilion dissipated slowly, as did the mighty blood river. The blood puppet powered off and remained motionlessly suspended there. Everything finally quieted down. Jian Wushuang looked pale. He went to Deng Hua's corpse, took the white-robed elder's interspatial ring, and started binding the ring to himself. "It took me a lot of energy and 3 blood gems to kill him. I hope his interspatial ring won't disappoint me," Jian Wushuang thought with expectation. As he checked the ring, many treasures began to appear before his eyes. After a while, his eyes sparked with surprise and joy. "Fantastic. He is worthy of being a heaven-defying level expert." Jian Wushuang spoke. He had never seen such a valuable ring that held so many treasures. There were hundreds of thousands of raw gems, lots of natural treasures, elixirs, magic weapons, manuals, and some treasures even Jian Wushuang could not identify. There were 2 treasures that delighted him the most. The first one was a heaven-breaking elixir. This elixir had the same function as the Saint Breakthrough elixir. It could greatly increase the probability of an expert at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm making a breakthrough to the Cloud Realm. Like experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm or half-Saint level, who desired Saint Breakthrough elixirs. Many Saint Realm experts often yearned for heaven-breaking elixirs. A large number of experts at Stage 3 or the peak of Stage 3 would go mad for this elixir. He prepared a heaven-breaking elixir. It seems Deng Hua intended to make a breakthrough. It's pity that he was killed before his breakthrough, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. The heaven-breaking elixir was very useful to him. He would use this elixir for his breakthrough. The second treasure that amazed Jian Wushuang was a token. The token looked the same as the transfer slip that Deng Hua had wanted to use to escape. It was another transfer slip. It is a second transfer slip. Jian Wushuang could not help but sigh. A transfer slip was something rare and precious that could save one's life at a critical moment. Deng Hua was unlucky. Even if he fought against a powerful lord, he could have escaped by using the transfer slip, but he had bumped into Jian Wushuang. 18 levels of hell that Jian Wushuang displayed could suppress Deng Hua's consciousness and even restricted transfer slip's effect, so Deng Hua ended up getting killed. Deng Hua said that the transfer slip was the most valuable treasure he got from exploring cave mansions, and no one could force him to use it. Actually, he gained more than one transfer slip, Jian Wushuang said and sneered. He understood that since it was a trump card for saving one's life, it was no wonder that Deng Hua lied and said he had only one transfer slip. I just spent some energy in 3 blood gems, but I received plenty of raw gems and countless treasures, including a heaven-breaking elixir and a transfer slip. I made a killing, Jian Wushuang said with a hint of excitement in his eyes. He really had earned a lot. What he gained was over 10 times what he used. It took Jian Wushuang quite a while to calm down. Then he looked around indifferently, noticing the shocked and terrified spectators, but he ignored them. After putting the blood puppet back into his interspatial ring, he rushed toward Josha Cave Mansion. The fierce fighting around Josha Cave Mansion had stopped. Both sides stood opposite each other in the air, waiting quietly. They were all waiting to learn about the outcome. A figure glided through the area and appeared in front of them. It was Jian Wushuang. Swordsman. Bone King, Shuiyang Beast, and the other comrades looked toward Jian Wushuang at the same time. Swordsman, where is Deng Hua? Bone King asked. Duo Xian Marquis and the other experts of Pale Moon Marquis stared at Jian Wushuang. They had previously seen Jian Wushuang chasing Deng Hua, but now Jian Wushuang had come back without Deng Hua, which was not a good sign. Jian Wushuang coldly glanced at them, his cold voice reverberating throughout the area. From now on, Deng Hua no longer exists in the flaming battlefield. Then he turned over his hand and revealed a token. It was an ID token. However, it was different from an ordinary token. It was purple gold. In the flaming battlefield, experts at different levels would have different ID tokens. For example, an expert at Stage 2 commonly had a silver token, while an expert at Stage 3 held a gold one. Only heaven-defying level experts were qualified to have golden purple tokens. Everyone present was clear about who had previously possessed this golden purple token. Since Jian Wushuang held the ID token, it meant that its previous owner was. Is he dead? Deng Hua, a super expert at the heaven-defying level, was killed. A heaven-defying level expert is dead. Bone King, Shuiyang and Beast were stunned. The experts from Marquis Songyue camp also widened their eyes. They had thought it was incredible when they saw Jian Wushuang chasing after Deng Hua. Now they had received the news that Deng Hua had been killed. He was a super expert at the heaven-defying level. In the whole flaming battlefield, many experts had died throughout its millennial history. Even some lords had been killed, but it was rare for a heaven-defying level expert to die. An expert from Marquis Piaoxua camp had been killed in the flaming battlefield, but it was a lord who killed him. Deng Hua was the second expert at heaven-defying level to be killed in its millennial history. Let's go, Duo Xian Marquis shouted in a low voice. He looked at Jian Wushuang in terror, and then led his people away. They knew that it was impossible for them to take back the Josha Cave Mansion without Deng Hua. Jian Wushuang wore a faint smile while watching his opponents leave. He did not intend to go after them. Chapter 435 Famous for the Fight. Chapter 435 Famous for the Fight. Swordsman. Bone King, Shuiyang and Beast wore complicated expressions while standing in front of Jian Wushuang. When they met, Beast was somewhat disdainful of the young man, but now he was shocked by his strength. Swordsman killed Deng Hua, which means he could easily kill me if I were his opponent. Marquis Songyua's people retreated. It's impossible for them to return in a short period of time, so we've basically acquired Joshua Cave Mansion. Let's see how the formation is going, Jian Wushuang said casually with a faint smile. Okay. Bone King, Shuiyang and Beast nodded, delighted in their heart. As of now, they had completely conquered Joshua Cave Mansion and finished their mission. At this moment, in the huge tent of Marquis Songyua camp, 3 tall and bulky figures sat with an angry look. They were lords in charge of the camp business. In front of them, their experts stood respectfully in terror. No one spoke. The whole tent was filled with an oppressive silence. After a good while, a burly middle-aged man with purple hair, who sat on the middle throne, spoke. Deng Hua is dead. A man called Swordsman killed him. I've never heard of this swordsman before, and he isn't on the list of experts our camp needs to pay more attention to. But Deng Hua, a heaven-defying level expert, was killed by such a nobody. He even used a transfer slip but still failed to escape. Who can tell me where Swordsman came from? The angry voice of the burly middle-aged man frightened his underlings. A green-robed elder stepped forward and said respectfully, Lord, I've investigated his origin and know that he has recently arrived at the flaming battlefield. Over the past half a year, he became famous for his special realm technique in the inner area, but his own strength was not impressive. This time when he followed Bone King to fight for control of Joshua Cave Mansion, his strength improved greatly. According to Duo Xian Marquis' report, Swordsman fought with 2 experts at the peak of Stage 3. He killed one of them and forced the other to escape with only 1 stroke. His battle strength has reached the heaven-defying level. Besides his own strength, he was able to kill Deng Hua because his puppet fighter, which is also at the heaven-defying level, helped him a lot. The puppet fighter was terrifying indeed. It was more powerful than Deng Hua in the offense, speed and strength. With Swordsman's realm technique, Sir Deng Hua had no choice but to use the transfer slip. When Sir Deng Hua used the transfer slip, Swordsman displayed a special technique and caused Deng Hua to lose his consciousness for a second. At that moment, the puppet fighter took the chance to kill Deng Hua. Swordsman has awakened the Sword Soul, and his Sword Soul was a double first-grade Sword Soul. In a word, Swordsman is a peerless genius who has great potential. He must have made a major breakthrough in origin or other aspects, causing his strength to improve greatly. Though his present strength is only close to the heaven-defying level, he had various skills and trump cards. The green-robed elder clearly said everything he knew about Jian Wushuang. Humph, the burly middle-aged man snorted and said, I don't care what skills or trump cards he has. This time we lost Joshua Cave Mansion and Deng Hua was killed, both because of him. Joshua Cave Mansion is very precious among the cave mansions under our control. It's just less important than 3 Marquis Cave Mansions. Deng Hua was one of our 3 experts at the heaven-defying level. As we all know, lords won't join fights in the flaming battlefield, which means that the heaven-defying level experts are our backbone. Now Deng Hua is dead. Our battle strength at the heaven-defying level is weaker now, so we might suffer some losses in important battles. Moreover, Swordsman has double first-grade sword souls, so he has great potential. If given several years, he will become one of our powerful enemies. We can't give him such an opportunity. Tell them all that Swordsman ranks first on the bounty list of our camp. Find an opportunity to kill him as soon as possible. The voice of the burly middle-aged man was extremely cold and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Yes, said the green-robed elder. Oh. They quickly started discussing how to kill Jian Wushuang. At the same time, the news of Deng Hua being killed outside Joshua Cave Mansion spread through the 2 camps at an amazing speed. After all, when Jian Wushuang chased after Deng Hua, they ran more than 5,000 kilometers and passed by lots of experts from both camps, so many experts witnessed Jian Wushuang kill Deng Hua. It was no wonder that the news spread so swiftly. It caused a sensation in both camps. Swordsman instantly became a new star in the flaming battlefield. Inside Josha Cave Mansion, it's done. As Lady Red set down the gems for the last formation, her eyes lit up. Behind her, Jian Wushuang, Bone King, Shuiyang and Beast laughed. Finally, we finished our task, Bone King said with a smile. Haha, 10,000 battle achievements, Beast added, his eyes sparkling with joy. 10,000 battle achievement, it's a large amount for us. Of course, that could not be compared with what Swordsman received. Shuiyang looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Indeed, he gained the most from this task. With the best move Josha left behind, he had comprehended the second move of heart-killing sword technique, which improved his strength greatly, allowing him to kill Deng Hua. He became famous for this fight and claimed Deng Hua's interspatial ring. Soon he would even receive 10,000 battle achievements. Other experts would be very envious of his gains. Swordsman, I heard that our camp has a special reward for those who kill a top expert. Chapter 436 Special Reward. Chapter 436 Special Reward. A special reward? Jian Wushuang asked with a faint smile. He had heard about it. There was a group of famous top experts such as Bone King, Duo Xian Marquis, Heavenstone Castle Lord, Shui Luo and so on. Although they were only at the peak of Stage 3, they were able to fight against experts at the heaven-defying level, so they could be considered overlords in the flaming battlefield. These overlords were important to both camps. It was said that each camp had a list of top experts from the hostile camp. Only a few powerful experts were qualified to enter the list, and if someone killed an expert from that list, he would receive various extra rewards. Now that Jian Wushuang had killed a heaven-defying level expert from the Marquis Songyue camp, he would get a bigger reward. The formation is done. Lady Red, stay here. Everyone else will go back to the camp with me, Bone King said. Then they immediately rushed to the campsite. The moment Jian Wushuang appeared in the campsite, a commotion arose in the camp. Countless experts looked toward Jian Wushuang. He is Swordsman. That's him. He killed Deng Hua, the heaven-defying level expert. Amazing. I wonder when I will be as strong as Mr. Swordsman. Many of the experts around them were talking about Jian Wushuang while ignoring Bone King, Shuiyang and Beast. At this moment, Mr. Swordsman, Spirit Lord asked for you to meet him now that you've returned. Spirit Lord. Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. He did not know Spirit Lord. Since he was a lord, he must be a super expert in the Cloud Realm. Swordsman, there are 4 lords in charge of camp business. Spirit Lord is the most powerful among them. Bone King whispered to Jian Wushuang. Now he wants to meet you. It should be related to the special reward. With an eyebrow cocked, Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Bone King, Shuiyang and Beast, thanks for your hard work. Spirit Lord said you can submit your tasks now, the purple-robed person said. Bone King, Shuiyang and Beast responded with a shrug as Jian Wushuang followed the purple-robed person into a tent. It was a spacious tent with only one long narrow table. A stately man with stubble sat before the table. He was Spirit Lord. The instant Jian Wushuang stepped inside, Spirit Lord immediately opened his eyes and looked toward Jian Wushuang. The young man instantly felt as if he was being targeted by a viper, which chilled his blood. Spirit Lord. Jian Wushuang slightly bowed to show his respect. Swordsman. Spirit Lord replied with a smile, which seemed to be filled with various emotions that drove the young man's fear away. I checked your record. You belong to Iron Saber territory and have recently arrived at the Divine Land. Right, Jian Wushuang said while nodding slightly. When in Iron Saber territory you were not that powerful and just had a good realm technique. Then, after you arrived at the flaming battlefield, you started displaying the battle strength that was at Stage 3. Your strength didn't improve until you traveled to the inner area. Especially this trip to Josha Cave Mansion. Your strength soared to the heaven-defying level. In just half a year, you have made great progress in such a short period of time. Even I was surprised. Spirit Lord looked toward Jian Wushuang and then asked, by the way, where are you from? Nanyang Continent, Jian Wushuang replied honestly. But he was wondering why Spirit Lord inquired about that. I haven't heard of it before, Spirit Lord said while shaking his head. The divine land was at the center of the world and possessed countless lands, so it was normal that Spirit Lord had not heard of Nanyang continent. Take it easy, Spirit Lord said with a smile. I just want to tell you that since our camp knows about your ability, so will the enemy camp. They will pay more attention to you. And since you killed Deng Hua, they will try their best to kill you. If I didn't guess wrong, you will rank within the top 3 or even first on the bounty list in their camp. So you should be careful. Don't give them an opportunity to kill you. The lords from both sides made a tacit agreement that they won't join common fights. However, if you pose a major threat to them, I am afraid that they will break the agreement. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and nodded heavily. Thanks for reminding me. Okay. Take care of yourself. Spirit Lord smiled and said, Marquis Songyue camp has a bounty list with special rewards. We also have one. Killing the experts on that list means you get a special reward. You killed Deng Hua, who was a heaven-defying level expert and ranked 2nd on the list, so you're qualified to get a special reward. Finally, Jian Wushuang thought with a hint of expectation. He was wondering what special reward he would receive after he killed Deng Hua. He expected it to be a big reward. As for your special reward, you have 2 options. Spirit Lord stuck out 2 fingers. First, you can freely choose a treasure from our treasure vault. On hearing this, Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. I can choose whatever I want in the treasure vault. The treasure vault was filled with thousands of treasures, various secret skills, elixirs, and magic weapons. Even first-grade manuals, first-grade elixirs, and first-grade magic weapons could be found there. Even lords were eager to acquire some of the treasures there. This reward was quite amazing. What's wrong? The reward scares you? Spirit Lord looked at Jian Wushuang. As he saw the young man's eyes sparkle with surprise and joy, Spirit Lord could not help but smile. You probably do not know how important Deng Hua was to the Marquis Songyue camp. In other words, you did not know how important a heaven-defying level expert is to the whole flaming battlefield. Chapter 437 Baima Cave Mansion. Chapter 437 Baima Cave Mansion. In the flaming battlefield, we have a tacit agreement that lords won't join fights. Therefore, when both sides fight for control of the cave mansions or other important items, Stage 3 experts and heaven-defying level experts mean a lot. Previously, each camp had 3 heaven-defying level experts, so both sides possessed equal battle strength. When fighting for control of cave mansions or important items, both camps would send their heaven-defying level experts to balance out the highest level battles, so they usually ended in a stalemate. However, now that you have killed Deng Hua, their camp has lost a heaven-defying level expert. You have upset the balance. In the near future, if we need to fight for control of a cave mansion or some important items, we will hold the advantage because, including you, we have 4 heaven-defying level experts. Their camp will not be able to beat us, so we'll gain more benefits, Spirit Lord said with a smile. Got it. Jian Wushuang immediately understood. If lords did not show up, a heaven-defying level expert would be the deciding factor in conflicts of interests. Although Deng Hua had not reached the Cloud Realm, he was still more important than a lord. After all, both sides have lots of lords, so it's no big deal for them to lose one. However, there were only 3 heaven-defying level experts in each camp. If such an expert dies, his camp will suffer a great loss. You killed a heaven-defying level expert, so you will receive more rewards than you would for killing a lord, Spirit Lord said. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang did not know how to respond. Since heaven-defying level experts were so important, it was no wonder that he would receive such a big reward. Spirit Lord, you just said I have 2 options. What's the second one? Jian Wushuang asked. Our camp controls 99 cave mansions. Of course, counting Josha Cave Mansion, we have 100 cave mansions now. The second option is to allow you to enter one of those cave mansions, Spirit Lord replied. Jian Wushuang was shocked. You mean that I can choose a cave mansion to explore once, Jian Wushuang clenched his hands with a gush of excitement in his eyes. Then he asked, Spirit Lord, are the 3 marquee cave mansions included in 100 cave mansions? Yes. Spirit Lord nodded. Okay, then I will take the second option and I want to explore Marquee Beima Cave Mansion, Jian Wushuang said without hesitation. Ever since he went to Treasure Vault and read the information about the cave mansions, he had been longing for the chance to enter Beima Cave Mansion. Marquee Beima had comprehended world origin to an amazing level. He left 3 opportunities in his mansion, and that was very attractive to Jian Wushuang. You really made a good choice. Spirit Lord looked toward Jian Wushuang and said, of those cave mansions, the cave mansion Marquee Beima left is the most precious. It commonly costs 100,000 battle achievements to enter that mansion. As for the other 2 marquee cave mansions, you only need to pay 50,000 or 65,000 for each mansion. Jian Wushuang touched his nose. He still remembered how the cost of entering Beima Cave Mansion had startled him at the time. It was lucky that he received this special reward, or he might have to wait a long time to meet the requirement. Beima Cave Mansion is in the outer area. You should know its location so you can go there whenever you want, Spirit Lord added. That's it. Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. I don't need a token or a form of identification. No, I will send a message to the experts who are guarding the mansion. They will identify you when you get there, Spirit Lord replied. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded. Then you can go, Spirit Lord said while waving his hand. Jian Wushuang immediately left the tent. Beima Cave Mansion was heavily guarded. It had even more experts than Wuxia Cave Mansion. Jian Wushuang slowly approached the entrance but found the formation blocking his way. Who is it? A cyan-dressed man, who was standing by the entrance with several experts, shouted. Swordsman, Jian Wushuang answered. Swordsman. The cyan-dressed man and the experts beside him were shocked. The news that Jian Wushuang killed Deng Hua had spread through the whole flaming battlefield over the past several days, so the experts who guarded Beima Cave Mansion had also heard about it. Sir, you are Swordsman? The cyan-dressed man immediately changed his attitude and said respectfully, I received an order and know you have an opportunity to explore Beima Cave Mansion. I didn't expect you to come so quickly. The cyan-dressed man was an expert at stage 3, but he still called Jian Wushuang sir. May I go inside now? Jian Wushuang asked. Sorry sir. I do believe you but we have rules. I need to identify you before you can enter, the cyan-dressed man said. How will you identify me? Jian Wushuang replied peacefully. As we all know, you've awakened a double first-grade sword soul, and can display a realm technique, Blood River. Sir, as long as you perform one of those techniques, I can let you enter, the cyan-dressed man answered. Chapter 438 Lord Level Puppet Fighter. Chapter 438 Lord Level Puppet Fighter. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Then 2 towering sword soul phantoms rose behind him. Each of the sword soul phantoms was almost 100 feet tall, and contained a mighty sword essence. The experts by the entrance could not help marveling at it. How about it? Jian Wushuang asked while looking at the cyan-dressed man. Sir, please wait a moment. The cyan-dressed man immediately went to open the formation. After a while, Jian Wushuang saw a hole appear in the formation, so he walked in through it. The cyan-dressed man stepped forward and said, Sir, I'm in Feng and have guarded this area for many years. If you have any problems you can ask me. Okay. Jian Wushuang glanced at the cyan-dressed man and nodded slightly. Sir, please come with me. The cyan-dressed man immediately led Jian Wushuang into the mansion. As a marquee cave mansion, Beima Cave Mansion covered a vast stretch of land, with a long channel connected to the entrance. Jian Wushuang was walking in the channel, while inspecting some of the guards in it. Most of the guards were at stage 2. He even saw some experts that were at stage 3. Obviously, the security here was much more powerful than that at Wuxia Cave Mansion. Jian Wushuang sensed 2 streams of faint but terrifying auras. Obviously, there were 2 lords guarding this mansion. It's worthy of being a marquee cave mansion. 2 lords actually guard it. Jian Wushuang sighed in private. Sir, we're arriving at the inner layer of this mansion. There are 3 opportunities in this mansion. I will show you later, and Feng said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. They quickly arrived at the inner layer of Beima Cave Mansion and entered a huge secret chamber. The chamber was as large as a small martial arts practice field, with only a statue standing on the ground. It was like a human being except for the fact that it had no aura. A puppet fighter. Jian Wushuang immediately knew that it was a powerful puppet fighter as soon as he saw it. Behind the puppet fighter, there was a long narrow table with an interspatial ring suspended in the middle of it. The ring, which was covered by a layer of gray energy, easily drew his attention. Sir, this interspatial ring is the first opportunity in Beima Cave Mansion. And Feng whispered to Jian Wushuang, the ring Marquis Beima left is filled with countless precious treasures, most of which even lords would like to possess. No one knows how many treasures this interspatial ring holds. Ever since our camp conquered this place, we've tried to take this ring away, but even Marquis Piaoxua did not succeed, let alone binding it to himself. Oh! Jian Wushuang was surprised, but he immediately understood. According to the information he received, Marquis Beima was extremely powerful, and much stronger than an ordinary marquis. It was not surprising that such a super expert left a special spell on his interspatial ring, so that not even Marquis Piaoxua could break it. Though you can't take it away, you will be given a chance to receive some treasures from it, and Feng continued, the only way to obtain treasures is to pass a test given by this puppet fighter. Test? Jian Wushuang thought with some expectations. Commonly, opportunities were accompanied by tests. Just like the ancestors' land. There were a large number of opportunities in the ancestors' land, but in order to receive the benefits, one needed to pass 3 tests. As for the test, sir, as long as you fight this puppet fighter for 10 breaths of time, which means that the puppet fighter doesn't kill you or drive you out of the secret chamber, you will have passed, and Feng said. Fight for 10 breaths of time? Jian Wushuang was astonished. Sir, this puppet fighter has reached the lord level, and Feng replied. Jian Wushuang frowned. Oh. There must have been other experts that came here before me and took this test, right? He asked. Right? And Feng nodded. Since the time our camp conquered this place, lots of experts have come here and passed this test. Each of them gained a treasure from the interspatial ring. However, they were all lords. As I expected. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Entering Beima Cave Mansion would cost an expert 100,000 battle achievements. An ordinary Saint Realm expert could not earn 100,000 battle achievements, so it was only possible for them to be lords. Jian Wushuang had the opportunity to come here because he received a special reward. I wonder if I can hold on for 10 breaths of time. Jian Wushuang thought with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Sir, I will wait outside of the secret chamber. Good luck, and Feng said. Then he walked out of the secret chamber and closed the door. The puppet fighter suddenly opened his eye and coldly looked at the young man. Jian Wushuang's expression became solemn. As he watched the puppet fighter, which was emanating a mighty aura, he directly performed Road to the Underworld and Tenfold Realm, causing the blood river to spread out and cover the whole chamber. Then Jian Wushuang pointed at the edge of Blood River, and the colossal bridge of helplessness stretched out over it. While covered by a scarlet armor, he was standing on the bridge like a peerless Azura. Then 2 towering sword soul phantoms rose behind him. Come, Jian Wushuang said with a cold look in his eyes. He held his triple kill sword while exuding a soaring aura. His strength had reached its peak. The puppet fighter looked at the young man. He slowly lowered his crossed forearms and clenched his hands. As a streak of light flashed faintly, a surge of terrifying power began to gather in his hands. The puppet fighter instantly moved. Chapter 439 The Dragon King Bao. Chapter 439 The Dragon King Bao. Boom! A roar suddenly rang out and the whole chamber started shaking violently. The fight has started. And Feng perceived the sound and began counting. A breath of time, too. Soon 10 breaths of time passed and the secret chamber became quiet. It seems that he made it, and Feng said with a faint smile. Jian Wushuang looked pale while gasping for breath. The puppet fighter had returned to the center of the secret chamber and closed its eyes. How powerful! Jian Wushuang sighed in private. Although 10 breaths of time was something transient, Jian Wushuang still felt that he had just experienced a big fight. His Saint Realm strength was nothing when compared to the battle strength of the Lord level. Fortunately, he only had to fight with a puppet fighter whose offensive skills were not complicated. Because of that, he was able to hold on for 10 breaths of time. If he had to fight with a real lord, he was not sure whether he could stick it out for the 10 breaths of time. Jian Wushuang slowly walked toward the interspatial ring placed at the end of the chamber. Standing before the ring, he hesitated for a while. Then he stretched out his hand towards the ring which was surrounded by gray energy. He immediately felt something. He did not know what it was, but he subconsciously grasped it and withdrew his hand. A streak of gold light followed his hand out of the gray energy area. This is... Jian Wushuang stared at the object in his hand with a hint of astonishment. It was a gold longbow with a sharp golden arrow. A bow. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly, but he immediately felt that it was an extraordinary longbow. It was covered with many mysterious cracks, and it almost seemed as if it was alive. Jian Wushuang held the longbow, and it felt like it weighed thousands of kilograms. The tip of the sharp golden arrow also frightened him. Let me bind it first. Jian Wushuang immediately used his blood to bind it to himself. After that, he felt a rush of information surge into his mind. The first-grade magic weapon, Dragon King Bao. Jian Wushuang was in a daze. First grade. A first-grade magic weapon. Jian Wushuang was totally dumbfounded. He knew that the treasures in this interspatial ring would be amazing. However, he did not expect that he would be so lucky as to receive a first-grade magic weapon. First-grade magic weapons were rare even in the Divine Land. Inside the Marquis Piaoshua's treasure vault, there were less than 10 first-grade magic weapons. Moreover, they were all longswords, sabers, or giant axes, which were normally aggressive weapons. No first-grade magic weapons that were similar to this bao could be found there. It didn't take long for Jian Wushuang to understand how powerful the Dragon King Bao was. The Dragon King Bao was made from a demonic blood dragon at the Lord level. The body of the bao and the bowstring were created by using its hardest bone and its tendon. The sharp golden arrow, known as the Dragon King arrow, was actually the sharpest horn on the demonic blood dragon. The Dragon King Bao had been created using the 3 most valuable parts of a demonic blood dragon. A first-grade magic weapon, how about its power? Jian Wushuang thought with a hint of expectance. Then he began testing the bao inside the secret chamber. He gripped the bowstring with his right hand and pulled it back with his full strength. Buzz! The instant he began to draw the bowstring, his mighty spiritual power crazily surged toward the bao, but he could only draw out 10% of the full draw. Phew! Jian Wushuang exhaled a breath. Then he slowly put down the Dragon King Bao. It is worthy of being a first-grade magic weapon. I tried my best but could only handle 10% of the full draw. Jian Wushuang sighed in private. He could not display its full power. However, he felt its terrifying power while drawing the bao. Furthermore, he had not used the Dragon King arrow. Good stuff. Jian Wushuang was privately delighted. Then an idea flashed through his mind. He immediately turned his hand over and a transparent jade bottle appeared. He opened it and let a small amount of white fluid flow out. The white fluid was the venom Jian Wushuang had gained from refining the icy heart poison. Icy heart poison was the most frightening venom that Jian Wushuang had ever seen. Now that venom was flowing towards the Dragon King arrow, where it quickly merged with the arrow tip. After that, the gold arrow tip became extremely white, which would terrify people. Jian Wushuang laughed. Even a lord should be unable to detoxify his body if this arrow pricks his skin. Jian Wushuang thought with a flicker of craftiness in his eyes. As a first-grade magic weapon, the Dragon King Bow combined with the Dragon King Arrow was more than powerful enough. With the aid of the icy heart poison, it could strike terror into any lord's heart. From now on, I have one more terrifying trump card. Jian Wushuang was filled with excitement. Once he calmed down, he left the secret chamber. Sir. Anfeng, who had been waiting outside, walked over and said, "It looks like you're very satisfied with the treasure you receive." "Yeah, not bad," Jian Wushuang replied with a faint smile, but he was actually quite satisfied in his heart. "Please take me to the place with the second opportunity," Jian Wushuang said. "Okay." Anfeng led the way and they quickly arrived at a side palace. The palace was spacious and without any decoration. There was only a thunderbolt pool, with a large number of purple thunderbolts, placed at the center of the area. Even though he was standing so far away from the pool, Jian Wushuang still felt that those thunderbolts were terrifying. "Sir, this is the second opportunity," Marquis Beima left, the Universal Thunderbolt Pool. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.